In the 1990s, the Evangelical Methodist Church was now entering its third generation. Many of the founders had passed, and those that remained were growing older. The question was no longer, who started this movement? The question was, who will carry it forward? One of those leaders was Dr. Jack Wease. Few people represented the Evangelical Methodist Church more completely than he did. He had answered God's call to preach as a teenager. He pastored churches, preached hundreds of revivals, served as district superintendent, and faithfully walked beside the denomination from its earliest days. Some would affectionately say that he was Mr. EMC. But perhaps the most remarkable part of his story was this. Jack Wease belonged to the first generation of the Evangelical Methodist Church. He had personally known the founders, yet God called him to lead during the rise of the third generation. That required something many leaders struggle to do. He had to prepare tomorrow's church without abandoning yesterday's convictions. Under his leadership, the denomination established its permanent headquarters near Indianapolis. The new Hamblen-Bruner headquarters opened debt-free. He traveled tirelessly to encourage pastors and churches. He reminded everyone that the headquarters existed to serve the local church, not the other way around. Then, in a remarkable act of forward-thinking leadership, Dr. Wease introduced something entirely new. The Evangelical Methodist Church entered the digital age. Its first website, its first denominational email system, new ways to connect churches that were separated by hundreds, even thousands of miles. For a man who had begun preaching before television became common, embracing the tools of the internet was no small accomplishment. He understood something timeless. Methods may change. The message never does. His passion remained exactly what it had always been. Prayer, holiness, revival, evangelism, world outreach. Dr. Wease's leadership transitioned the denomination not only from its second to its third generation, but also from the analog to the digital age. Then, another leader stepped forward, Dr. Ed Williamson, where Dr. Wease prepared the church for a new century. Dr. Williamson took it into its global future. Leaving behind a thriving congregation, he accepted God's call to lead the denomination. For the next 20 years, the longest administration in Evangelical Methodist history, he guided the church through one of its greatest seasons of expansion. New conferences were established around the world. The work in Mexico continued to flourish. New ministries developed in Africa, Myanmar, the Philippines, Europe, and beyond. His vision was simply summed up in the statement, "Defining the future by changed lives." He strengthened church planting, encouraged revitalization, improved accountability, and courageously led organizational changes that would allow the denomination to function more effectively and efficiently in a changing world. Even profound personal loss could not stop the work God had called him to do. After the passing of his beloved wife, Loretta, he continued serving faithfully, trusting the same Lord who had called him decades before. His life reminded the church that faithfulness is measured not only during seasons of blessing, but also through seasons of sorrow. Behind these well-known leaders stood countless faithful servants whose names may never appear in history books. Great men like Dr. Charles Church, a peacemaker, a builder, a shepherd whose calm spirit strengthened churches throughout the Atlantic District. Thousands of children and youth simply knew him as Papa Church. Then there is Jim Colston, raised in the Evangelical Methodist Church from childhood, serving faithfully in youth ministry, publications, missions, administration, and quietly becoming one of the steady hands that held the denomination together for decades. And many other men and women, lay people and ministers alike, who have dedicated themselves faithfully and loyally to the mission of the EMC. Some leaders stand in front of the spotlight. Others faithfully keep the lights on. The Evangelical Methodist Church has always needed both. Looking back over these 80 years, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Every generation faced challenges the previous generation never imagined. Dr. Hamblen confronted theological compromise. Olin Jones carried the gospel into the Louisiana bayous. Missionaries crossed borders and oceans. Jack Wease prepared the church for the digital age. Ed Williamson helped transform a national denomination into an international family of believers. Different generations, different challenges, the same faithful God. Today, under the faithful leadership of International General Superintendent Max Edwards, and the men currently serving as primary leaders of our 4 global conferences: Mexico, our oldest partner; Myanmar, which affiliated with us in 2006; South Africa, which has circuits and societies all across the Eastern Cape; and Asia Pacific, which is centered in the Philippines. The Evangelical Methodist Church serves Christ across multiple continents. Thousands worship each week in churches whose stories can all be traced back to a handful of believers who simply refused to compromise the gospel. They believed Scripture, they preached holiness, they loved people, and they trusted God with the future. The story of the Evangelical Methodist Church has never really been about buildings or conferences or even leaders. It has always been about a faithful God working through ordinary people who simply said yes. The founders have finished their race. The second generation has passed the torch. Now, the story belongs to us. What will the next chapter say? The Evangelical Methodist Church, celebrating 80 years of God's faithfulness.